Welcome back to my channel. I'm Traven. These are my tomes, and this is everything I read for April's 30 and 30 manga challenge.
Not yet. That's everything.
Yay! April was the first of two 30 and 30 manga challenges throughout the year. The other one happens in September. I participated in last year. And this year, I was very adamant that I was going to reread through all of Eyeshield 21, which I have 35 volumes of. So even though I read a lot last month, I think my grand total was 62 books for April. All but one of those are manga. So as we're talking about them, we only have to cover a few series, like I think maybe a dozen or so series to talk about. And we're going to go ahead and start with Eyeshield because it is the bulk of the month's read. I read from 1 to 35. I have bought the last two. Since the reissues are happening now, the prices became much more manageable. I'm planning to do a treasured tomes for this series once I finish up the last two volumes. The first 35 volumes gets you through the main thrust of the story. The premise here is it's an American football manga. The team is one that only has a handful of members, and they're very enthusiastic about getting to the Christmas Bowl, but they have no team. They have to basically recruit from all these other sports and kind of put together a ragtag group, and enter Senna, who is a gopher. He runs around for bullies, and as a result, he is actually remarkably quick, and he is more or less tricked to joining the team and becomes the titular Eyeshield 21. And then over the course of 35 volumes, you see the team grow and change, evolve, get stronger. The mangaka here has a very good grasp of how to raise tension within a given game and make it to where multiple aspects of the team can be highlighted in each game. He is very passionate about the sport and knows enough about it to make it passable. Like, there are a couple of things that happen in here where you're kind of like, I don't know if that's what would really occur, or I don't know if that really makes sense. But you kind of hand wave it away because it is, at the end of the day, a little bit hyperbolic in the way that it presents things. All the teams have these ridiculous themes. There's like the Egyptian team and the Wild West team, and they kind of have hand-wavy explanations as to why each of the teams looks the way they do. And then the Devil Bats, which is the main team, is just kind of a hodgepodge, and that's kind of their strength, is that they have an eclectic mix of people. I was introduced to this manga in college after getting into One Piece, and I had several other friends who were also reading One Piece and started reading this, and they explained that they feel like the same feelings you have in One Piece when the Straw Hat crew overcomes some big obstacle is the same feeling you get here whenever the team finally figures out a strategy for overcoming the team they're facing off against. That's a pretty good comparison because at its core, One Piece is a very goofy manga, and I feel like the humor is one of the highlights of Eyeshield 21 as well. This is not a grounded, realistic look at American football. It is a very bombastic, over-the-top comedy series. So if you are a fan of One Piece, if you are a fan of football, you can pick these up now. These are once again affordable, and I do believe that this was a book that was ahead of its time, and I think a lot more people need to be reading it. So highly recommended. I think most volumes got 5 stars. I think there were a handful of 4s, maybe 1 or 2 3s over the course of all 35 volumes, but an excellent read, one that I'm very excited to talk about again very soon. Speaking of One Piece, I read One Piece Volume 111, which continues to be exciting and very fun. This is toward the end of the Egghead Island arc. And there's a lot of lore dumping in here, which I'm a big fan of. I know there are the fans that are more fixated or more focused on the fighting and the action. There's a little bit of that in here, but really this is a volume mostly dedicated to outlining some of the big revelations of the world of One Piece before they travel to Elbath. They do get to Elbath in this volume, and we have a little bit of them running around there. It's like seemingly every arc at the beginning, it's a lot of establishing the rules of this particular island and what's going on and what do they need to make right as they're here. So again, One Piece, one of my favorite manga of all time. Gave it 5 stars. Really enjoying the series. Looking forward to Elbath a lot. I'm hoping that I've not gotten spoilers for anything in this part of the story, and I'm really hoping that we do something with Usopp here, because for the longest time I felt like post time skip Usopp has been mostly a disappointment compared to pre time skip Usopp. So I'm hoping that since we're in Elbath, that was his whole goal, is to become a brave warrior of the sea and to meet the giants. I'm hoping we get some good character moments for him in this arc. I read through the manga of Strange House 3 through 5. This is a manga retelling of a book I've already read, which was Strange Houses by Uketsu. I didn't enjoy Strange Houses as much as I enjoyed Strange Pictures, and the same is true for the manga. It is nice having the visuals to kind of reinforce some of the things that are going on here. The book does include the floor plans because that is the main thrust of the story. But actually seeing the characters talk about it and work through it and highlight the different things that are going on was a lot of fun. I do think the ending here is slightly different. So if you have read the book, I think you'll get a slightly different feel from the end. And this does move into what I assume is going to be Strange Buildings, Uketsu's newest book, which seems to be a story tangentially related to this, where the same writer who is getting approached about these strange houses kind of gets a bit of infamy, and now people are like, oh, you thought those houses were strange? Take a look at these building plans. And that's what Strange Buildings is going to be about. The manga series seems like it's going to continue into that, so there is more of this coming, and I am interested in it. It does capture the horror thriller vibe of the book, and I appreciate that quite a bit. So yeah, if you're a fan of Uketsu, you've read the book, I still think there's something to be gained from reading the manga. It didn't blow me away, but it was still a fun read. I read the Apothecary Diaries Volume 2, and Mao Mao is becoming one of my favorite characters. She is just so delightfully quirky and crazy. There's a point in here where her whole role in the court is to be a food taster. And so far she's been going about solving other mysteries, but in this book she actually fulfills that role. And let's just say the way that she reacts to the prospect of eating poison is not what I would expect from a normal person. But it is delightfully weird and incredibly fun to read. It continues again. The series continues to be this court intrigue meets like mystery, as far as the cycle of the stories go. So it's a lot of fun to try to figure out like what's really going on. It is a little bit difficult to follow because there are so many different groups in the court, and they all have their own motivations and their own their own ladies in waiting, and it's a lot of characters to try to juggle at once. But I do think it's a lot of fun, and I do think it does a good job of kind of explaining as it goes what is relevant as far as this particular story or this particular arc that you're listening or that you're reading at the time. So this is one I plan on continuing to pick up, just because it is something quite a bit different from anything else I've read. I read Chainsaw Man volumes 12 through 15. I have all the way through 20, I believe, and I will be reading those this month. So this is the second major division of the Chainsaw Man story. And so we are dealing with new characters, a new focus for the story in general. There are going to be readers of this series who feel like the dismissal of the first half of the story is off-putting, because the emotional weight doesn't seem like it's there, since we're now focusing on a new set of characters and new problems. But it's still entertaining. I'm still having fun reading it, and I like the new characters. They fit well into the world and are taking the rules of the Chainsaw Man universe and doing something quirky and new with it. So I've been enjoying the read so far and intend on finishing this to its completion. Volume 23, I believe, is going to be the last one, so I'm not too far off. Chainsaw Man was also my runner-up for my manga tournament forever ago, and so I feel like I owe it to close out the series now that I'm caught up with Witch Hat. I read Yaiba Samurai Legends Volume 2 and 3, which continues to be this kind of 80s nostalgia hit that I really enjoy. It's like going back and watching, I don't know, like Inuyasha, or one of the my formative years of early anime and manga through a modern lens. It's not anything that's like genre defining or anything like that, but it is just a quirky kid samurai story with a lot of gags. It's very funny. The volumes are huge, so they do take a while to read through. But I feel like if you're a fan of just like action adventure genre and you want to see an earlier example that newer series have kind of built off of, you want something a little bit more lighthearted, something you can turn your brain off while you're reading, this is a good pick. Not my favorite, not something that I would recommend to everyone, but if you are in the mood for that kind of nostalgic hit, it's a good pick. I did a pick 3 for Ruri Dragon, which is basically just read the first 3 volumes of the series. I wasn't sure what I was expecting with Ruri Dragon, but I walked away with the impression of comparing this to like magical realism. I texted my wife about how this is reminding me of a very old man with dirty wings, or what's the other one? It's like a very beautiful giant or something like that. I'll find the short stories. I'll put them up here in the corner. Because the premise here is that a girl wakes up with horns on her head and finds out she's a dragon. And that's a good setup, a good premise. But then where the story takes that is most people's reaction is just kind of like, okay. Does it hurt? Are you in pain? And when she's like, no, they're like, okay, cool. Like, come hang out with us and we'll study. It's still like a slice of life manga where the majority of the story is still like Ruri trying to fit in at school. And it's just a little bit more difficult now because she's a dragon and she might like belch flames and set someone on fire. But again, people take it very well in most cases. And the premise of magical realism is either the mundane treated as magical or the magical treated as mundane. And so I feel like it definitely hits that second type. I had a blast with it. I thought it was hilarious. I had a lot of fun. If you are someone who likes kind of a slice of life story, maybe like a Yotsubato, where it's everyday slice of life, but there's like something quirky about it. There's something a little bit weird about it. I think this is a lot of fun. Again, I laughed so much reading this. And then I was thinking about its ties with this tradition in literature that shares none of its like origins in Japan. Although I think the more that I'm thinking about it, I think that Japan does have stories like this and does have kind of an acceptance of certain types of magical ideas. So maybe that would be an interesting video for later, is to think about the concept of magical realism and how it has intersected with Japanese like Shintoism or their belief in the spirits and things like that. So I'm getting off topic. Ruri Dragon was fun. You should check it out. I continued The Summer Hikaru Died with Volume 4, which the author himself says is kind of a shift in focus. So where the first 3 volumes are kind of the setup of the story, we're now getting into the town mystery arc. We have Yoshiki and Hikaru traveling around and basically researching for a lot of this volume about their town and its ties with this malevolent spirit of the forest that Hikaru might be or might be part of. And just it's very weird. At parts it gives me kind of Junji Ito vibes a little bit. Like, it's not anywhere near as extreme as the type of things that Junji Ito puts in his books, but just like the unsettling weirdness of what their town represents and what the areas around it, their naming conventions, and how it all comes together is just very off-putting and very upsetting. I'm really liking this second part, this mystery of the town. I don't think this series could last on its premise alone of Yoshiki just always being paranoid about Hikaru and wondering about like what he is. It's nice to see that we're expanding the world a little bit. We're pulling back, and they're having to work together and try to solve what's going on around them, figure out who these new people in town are, what their motivations are, that type of thing. So if you like a horror manga, you want a mystery manga, I think this is a really good pick. One of the strongest mystery ones I'm reading right now. Very high on my recommendations. Check it out. I impulse bought Fluffy Cafe in Another World because, I mean, why wouldn't you? Look at this. This is super cute. And this is nothing beyond the premise. There's a character that gets isekai'd into another world, and he's like, I just want to open up a cat cafe. And so the god of that world, I think it's actually the god of cats, because he saves a cat, is like, sure, I'm going to give you animal handling, yes. And then he goes to that world, and he immediately tames this beastie here, who is like a god wolf, essentially. He's like one of the strongest wolves in this world. And so he's always like, I need to be free and independent, and you need to, respect me. And then he's like, oh, but you're so cool and strong. And then he'll be like, oh my God, he recognizes me. He recognizes that I'm good and cool. And it's just super cute. And then they start getting these little bunny guys, and they put them in the cafe. So a lot of this first volume is just him setting up the cafe, looking for a place where he can set it up, talking with people in the various guilds to figure out how he can make money so he can do this. And then the very end was finally some warriors coming in and him being like, yeah, take a load off and like pet these cute bunnies. And they're like, we're usually like murdering these bunnies for low XP, but they are really cute. And so, I mean, it's nothing that it doesn't promise on its surface. It's nothing deeper than that, but it was super cute. If you like cozy fantasy and you want a manga version of cozy fantasy, this would be my rec. It was a lot of fun. I liked it. Check it out. I read Gaea-Tima 3 through 5, which gets me current with this series. I was talking with another person on my channel about how this is really, Gaea-Tima is really the closest thing to a one-to-one adaptation of like an Ultraman or like a Kaiju series. So I read a lot of Kaiju and Sentai related stories. Red Ranger Becomes an Adventure in Another World, Kaiju number 8, Kaiju Girl Caramelized, and Mr. Villain's Day Off. And all of those, though, are just the trappings of Sentai or Kaiju into another genre, right? So, like, what if Super Sentai, but it's Isekai? Or what if, Kaiju, but it's, like, turning red? So, it's like a coming of age kind of thing. And Kaiju number 8 is basically just like, basic shonen with kaiju instead of, superpowers or whatever. Gaea-Tima feels more like an Ultraman series. The premise here is that the city was ravaged by a kaiju, and now it's back, only it is basically bonded with one of the people from the village and is now being used to protect it. In these particular volumes, we get another person who is controlling a kaiju and is doing so, they say, to protect Japan, and basically tries to strong arm the main cast into stopping using Gaea-Tima to protect their village, because she will protect them. And a lot of interpersonal relationship, a lot of character development between Miyako and Gaea-Tima, and trying to peg down what their relationship actually is, because they're like, oh, is it more like a partnership? Is it more like almost romantic? That seems to be what the other group is. And so it's exploration of that relationship. But again, it's all set in this backdrop that very much feels like an Ultraman series. I really dig the monster designs here, and I think the story is one that, if you are a fan of this genre, is more of an adaptation of that type of storytelling in manga form, rather than just dressing it up into another genre. So if you are a fan specifically of tokusatsu or kaiju, Godzilla, that type of thing, then this is a good pickup. Focus a lot on the human connections, like surprisingly grounded in the interpersonal connections of the ever-evolving cast. So really great. And I would highly recommend it. We have the latest volume of Destroy All Humans, They Can't Be Regenerated. Now, this one, I feel like the errors within the comic are getting more and more pronounced. I made mention of a couple of printing errors that I saw in the previous volume. Well, they're back in this one. I'm still enjoying it for the history of magic through a Japanese lens, and I feel like the middle school romance is fine. It's not anything offensive or egregious, and at least it's believable in both parties' trepidation of moving that relationship forward. In this one, we do work more on these love triangles that I don't think are going to ultimately go anywhere, but I still had a lot of fun with the Magic the Gathering side of it, and hearing about the early bannings and how banning certain things to try to get these really high-powered decks actually ended up making another really high-powered deck even more viable. So, like, if Magic the Gathering is your thing, this is really your only option. I do believe there is a Magic the Gathering novel out for Strixhaven that I want to pick up. But beyond that, unless you read the stories online, this is really it. And this is the only one that I feel is being published that deals with real life Magic players, or Magic players in the real world, dealing with the game. And so that's what is keeping me reading. Again, I don't think it's for everybody. I do think it is catering to a particular niche, like very hard. But if you're a part of that niche, it's very fun. I read Kaiju 8 Relax Volume 2, and this, like I mentioned on the previous one, is getting Kaiju number 8 back to being silly and goofy and just having a bunch of gags. Some of them work, some of them don't. I laughed quite a bit on this one. I think I ended up giving it 4 stars. If you enjoy Kaiju number 8 and you just want more content, pick this up. If you miss the early volumes of Kaiju number 8, which actually had some humor with the action and adventure element of it, and weren't just an entire volume of a single fight. You might also want to pick these up because it's just fun, goofy antics with the team on their kind of off time or off days. And it captures, even though it's not written by the same author as the mainline manga, it is capturing the feel of that early humor that the series had, which I think is sorely missing in the most recent couple of volumes. I picked up Gachiakuta, which I believe translates to literal garbage or total garbage, just on a whim. I'd heard things about the magic system in here and wanted to check it out. This is one where I'll probably give it a couple more volumes before I decide to drop it. But this is an example where world building can't carry everything for me. The powers are very cool. The powers are neat because they deal with this idea of, again, like spirits infusing objects, and if you take care of them, then they basically awaken and they can be weapons for you, which is a really neat idea. It's couched in this story of basically a segregated society, very, very clearly segregated society, where you have like the trash people and then you have the ones who, like, you know, live in the free world up above. And it's fairly heavy-handed with the world building. I didn't find the main character super likable. I felt like the violence was over the top in places where it didn't really feel necessary or entertaining. And I enjoy Chainsaw Man. I think Chainsaw Man pulls that off because it still manages like humor and lightheartedness along with it. But here it was just like, it wasn't working for me. So like I said, I'll probably pick up volumes 2 and 3, give it a shot, see how it's going. But unless we can do something to give some intrigue into this world more than we did in volume 1, or make me like the main character a little bit more, I don't see myself finishing this one up. If you think that premise sounds cool though, and you like the idea of the power system, I find it very intriguing. It's just a shame that the rest of the comic didn't grab me. And finally, I did a pick 3 for Land of the Lustrous, which was recommended to me by one of my students back in February when we did our Valentine's Day speed dating with a book assignment. And I really liked this to the point where if I don't finish it by September is almost certainly going to be get the rest of this series and finish it up in that month. I want to say that it's up to 20 volumes, something like that, and it's complete. Like it's completely done. It also has an anime series that I might check out. The premise here, one might argue, is similar to Steven Universe in that you are following a group of gems, essentially, with various hardness scales, which I found an interesting concept. The main character we're following, Phosphophilite, has a hardness scale of, I think, 3.5, which means she shatters incredibly easily. But she wants to be a fighter. And there are these bizarre beings that come down from the moon that are trying to capture the gems. There is a very vague bit of world building in which we know we're in the far future of Earth, where basically what was once humans has fractured into 3 major parts, which is like the body, the mind, and the soul, and those are expressed by these gems, the beings coming down from the moon, and another group, I believe, that lives out in the ocean. And it's just, it's weird. It's a very crazy premise. But what I love about the series is, one, it looks unlike anything that I've ever seen. I wouldn't say that it's the most beautiful art that I've ever looked at, but it's definitely different. It gives me the closest thing I can think of is like Revolutionary Girl Utena, or like really older series. The other thing that it has going for it is it has a lot to say about the pursuit of power and ambition and what we are willing to give up in order to attain what we want. Not in a way that ever feels like phospholite is like greedy, or is doesn't have the best of intentions. She's ambitious. She wants to fight because she wants to protect her family and her master. But one of the things that one of the prices of that is that because she is a gem, they explain that memory is basically they explain that memory is housed throughout her body. She doesn't have a brain. It's her entire body. So if she loses a piece of herself to make it stronger, then she forgets people in her life. And I feel like it's incredibly poignant, but also done in a way that I've not seen before, right? Like I've seen this idea of the pursuit of victory at all costs, and someone clearly losing it and losing sight of what's important in order to get stronger, attain their dreams. But I've never seen it from a character that was presented as so genuine and pure in their convictions. It always ends up being something that's more like tainted and dark. And so a very interesting take. And like I said, there's a lot more going on in the story than just that. But that alone is very captivating to me, and it really makes me want to continue the series. I'm very much looking forward to it. And of everything that I've talked about today, I think if there's anything at all about what I just described that you feel is interesting or intrigues you, go pick this series up. It's great. And that's all I read for the month of April, except I did mention I read a single book last month. I listened to the audiobook of Sam Keen's The Violinist's Thumb, which is all about genetics and DNA. And for me, this is probably the okayest Sam Keen book I've read so far. So I would place it above Dinner with King Tut, but I'd place it below Ice Pick Surgeon and below Disappearing Spoon. So yeah, it was fine. I'm probably not going to be able to recall much of the specifics of what I read, but it had that same Sam Keen flavor of a quirky science thing that he wanted to talk about, the different experiences he had in researching it. So, I mean, if you're interested in that field of science, definitely check it out. But if you're looking at Sam Keen's work, I would recommend the Ice Pick Surgeon first, just because I feel like that is the one that stands out the most to me and has the most intriguing and captivating stories. Well, thanks for coming by as I ramble about the 62 books I read last month. If you're interested in the 30 for 30 challenge, again, that is going to happen later this year in September. There'll be another round. If you're like me and have a very big backlog of manga to read through, it's fun to have the different goals. And for me, since I was doing this alongside Amanda, we had fun just like recommending each other books and talking about what we were reading. As always, I hope your reading journey is going well. Down in the comments, let me know if you took part in the 30 and 30 manga challenge last month, if you plan on doing so again in September, what's on your TBR as far as manga is concerned, anything on my list that you found interesting and want to know more about, let me know and we can start a conversation. I love talking with people about my current reads or things that they're excited about. I love getting recommendations. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe so we can grow this corner of our BookTube community. And until the next one, take care.